Welcome to The Third Story. I'm your host, Leo Sidran, and
I'm your guest host, Soul Sidran.
Hi, Soul Sidran. Today's guest is guitarist and internet magician Cory Wong. Cory comes from Minneapolis and got his start working with many of the great Minneapolis funk musicians who worked with Prince, and they showed him the ways of the funk. For example, in our conversation, he talks about how the incredible drummer Michael Bland mentored him along the way, showed him how to play the right voicings and what to listen to. Cory is probably best known for his work with Vulfpeck. These days, it seems like everybody's talking about Vulfpeck.
Even my neighbor, Zach.
That's right. Zach came over to the house to hang out with you the night I had this conversation with Cory.
Zach loves Vulfpeck.
You're right. Zach does love Vulfpeck. If you're not aware of them, you can check out my previous interviews with Vulfpeck mastermind Jack Stratton, as well as Theo Katzman and Joe Dart. And while you're at it, you could also listen to the episode I did with producer John Fields, who's been recording and mixing most of Cory's music. I tell you that because all of these names come up in our interview, and actually they come up pretty early on. Anyway, years ago, when Vulfpeck was still a new thing, Jack Stratton, Theo Katzman, Joe Dart, and I think Joey Dosick also. Joey, by the way, I hope we have a chance to get together sometime soon and sit down for our own Third Story podcast interview. Anyway, these cats were all on tour together with a night off in Minneapolis, and they went down to the Bunkers Jam Session, led by the notorious Dr. Mambo's Combo. That's where they heard Cory Wong, and history was made. In this episode, Cory and I try to tell that story, but we get sidetracked so many times that it ends up taking nearly 70 minutes to get through it.
But trust me, it's worth it.
Thank you, Soul. I think so, too. What kinds of things distracted us? What did we get hung up on? Talking about the legendary smooth jazz saxophonist Dave Koz, for example. Because Cory has been working with Dave Koz lately, which was the result of a month-long social media campaign to get his fans to write to Dave Koz and encourage him to play with Cory. The night before this interview happened, I saw Cory play at the Bowery Ballroom to a sold-out crowd in New York City, and guess who joined him on stage? Dave Koz.
They also talk about the power of the internet, Cory's plan to disrupt smooth jazz and bring it into the 21st century.
That's right, he calls himself the Millennial Smooth Jazz Ambassador. And you know what else we talked about? What it means to command the grid. Stay tuned to find out what we're talking about.
Visit thirdstory.com. Third-story.com for all your Third Story podcast needs, or support us at patreon.com/thirdstorypodcast.
Very nice. And by the way, at third-story.com, I put up some videos and I made a Spotify playlist related to this episode, as I often do when I can, because we talk a lot about Cory's live show and we talk about his records and his influences. And so if you go to the website, you can get a sense of what we're talking about, and it'll deepen the experience.
Without further ado, here's Cory Wong talking to my dad.
That's me.
And drinking a bottle of wine while Zach and I hang out in my room.
I've listened to Jack, I've listened to Theo, I've listened to Fields, I've listened to Paul Peterson. I know you've been calling me out. I know you've been after me, so don't think I don't know what I'm in for.
You know, man,
I think I know you have questions prepared for me, which is why I'm like so down.
If I had had this conversation with you before I saw your show last night, I probably would have had a very different vision,
really,
of who you are. You're a secret weapon, man. Like, there's so much about you that I think I just didn't realize how much showmanship you had and how much, just how much shtick there was and how much humor there was and how crazy it is that you're sold out the Bowery Ballroom playing intelligent groove music. And then got Dave Koz up there. You had all these kids who are like freaking out about Dave Koz. Like, the whole thing was like a little bit surreal to me. You put that together in a way that it somehow made sense to everybody in the room, which it shouldn't make sense. That actually shouldn't really make a lot of sense right now.
I know. And that's the funny thing about it. It's like with my show, and I think the way that Jack is too with Vulfpeck, it's like, let's just keep pushing the boundary and see what we can pull off and read the audience. It's like, oh, this kind of bit, it's working.
Yeah.
Or like this sort of thing I think can land.
Yeah.
And then trying to see some of the big picture stuff where it's like, bringing out somebody like Koz and trying to get Koz's attention and the Koz nod thing and all of that stuff that just kind of manifested and like kind of willed it to be, but in a fun way where that was the first time I really felt the power of a storyline to an album and the storyline to like an artist thing. Like you're always hearing like A&R bros and the PR people saying like, gotta have a story, gotta have this, gotta have that.
Right, but it has
mostly
to be...
like the story thing, which is great. And it's like, cool. If there is one, awesome. I don't want to force a story if there's not a story. But that one was the first time I really felt like, wow, they're not wrong. Because if there's a storyline, people are so interested. And it was fun to be equally telling the story and hearing the story at the same time. Because I was I was pretty transparent with everything on the internet. And like just like in real time, as I'm getting stuff happening, I'm just showing it and telling it on the internet.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
A lot of people were probably in that room and have discovered your solo career because they are huge Vulfpeck fans.
Totally.
So here comes you as a solo act, and it's like, so what's that going to look like and what's that going to feel like? And I was blown away by how developed it was. It's like a full-on Minneapolis attack on people. It's like a Minneapolis assault on people, and they might not even understand what that means.
Totally.
For me, Prince was like very real and very present in my life when I was coming up.
Yeah.
I imagine if you're under 30 today, Prince is a kind of theoretical thing. It doesn't really mean the same thing.
Yeah. And even for me, it's different for me because I grew up in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And that was just in the air.
Yeah.
It's in the water.
Yeah.
It's all over. And the people that I really were my mentors and I learned from and cut my teeth with, the guys who yelled at me to not play so many notes in my voicings over these funk chords, and the guys that yelled at me to lay things a certain way in the pocket were Prince's band. So it's a much more potent thing for me because I think also a lot of times what they were looking for is, how come you're not sounding like Prince? We're used to what Prince would do on this.
Yeah.
Which was very cool.
Yeah.
And it was a unique experience for me to really feel and learn and just absorb all of that information.
So let's wind this back a little bit. A lot of people know you from Vulfpeck. I've heard the story a couple of ways of how you sort of got brought in. But I guess what I'm interested in is like the backstory before all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of gave a little bit of an autobiographical sketch on stage last night. You talk about how your father was an IBM salesman in the age of the iPhone.
Yeah.
What brought you to the funk in the first place, or what was your childhood scene like?
I mean, the funk thing all came probably just because I live in Minneapolis, and those were the guys that I was playing with. Those were my main influences and my teachers and mentors.
Yep.
There was a while where I was trying to be a jazz cat. I wanted to be Pat Metheny.
Yeah.
And it certainly showed that I was trying to be somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
And when I finally had the wherewithal and people around me who were just like, dude, sound like you.
I mean, is your family musical? Is anybody in your family musical? How'd you start playing music?
No. I was just really drawn to it. I was drawn to the visceral reaction that I had from music.
Yeah.
And then also my dad being a huge music head, having Weather Report and the entire ECM catalog on vinyl at the house.
Yeah.
And also a huge classic rock guy. So he had a ton of music around.
Yeah.
And yeah, music, it was just something that was, I knew that my mood was changed by music. I knew that my vibe overall was changed by the music I was listening to and the way I responded to it. And it was like, for a while I was a, skater kid that was just wanting to get out and have a little bit of, some of that teenage angst. So I got into punk rock, and that's really where I started playing guitar.
Yep.
And Chili Peppers and Primus actually were some of the bigger influences. Obviously not punk bands, but bass heavy bands. I started playing bass. That's what I wanted to do. And then I really wanted to start a band. And the only two guys that were like, yeah, I'll start a band with you. And my stepdad's got a drum kit at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to play it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to play drums so I can show my friend a couple beats.
Right.
And then he'll be the drummer.
Yeah.
And then my other friend was like, yeah, my dad's got a bass upstairs, but you want to be the bass, like you play bass. I was like, screw it. I'll save up and buy a guitar. So I found a way to get a guitar.
Right.
And I started playing guitar and taught my friend how to play bass.
You know, I never ask this question because I generally don't think it matters, but in your case, I think it is relevant. Were you playing Strat originally? What was the first guitar that you were playing?
Strat. I'm
you
a
were
Strat guy.
player. You're a Stratocaster musician.
And my dad was just like, my dad's a Hendrix freak. So I think that probably had a lot to do with him just being like, you got to have a Strat, you know? Everybody from Dire Straits to Jimi Hendrix to
Clapton.
Vince Gill,
Yep.
Clapton, SRV. It's
Yep.
like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. The
Yep.
legends.
Yep.
Sure, I'll play Strat. It sounds awesome. And fortunately, I still love the way that it sounds and feels today.
Because you are a Stratocaster musician in a lot of ways. I mean, you make the Stratocaster do all of the things that the Stratocaster wants to do, you know?
Sure.
And you love it. Like, you have a love of the sound of that instrument.
Yeah,
And
I certainly do.
I was reminded, and I'm sure this has come up for you before, I was reminded of Nile Rodgers last night also.
Yeah.
You know, there are very few people that just will go out and just spank the Strat, and that's the thing that they're doing.
And what's fun is that I didn't really come to that as much on my own.
Mm-hmm.
It was always there. I don't think I gave myself the license to do it until I had guys like Jack really point out, like, dude, I think your thing might be like Dave Williams meets Paul Jackson Jr., and you've got all the Nile stuff.
Yeah.
Like, lean into that and
Yeah.
see if you can make that feel like the rhythm thing being the lead thing. He kind of encouraged me to explore that. I maybe had a little bit of a roadblock in my own head from discovering that, just because I wasn't sure if that was an appropriate role or whatever. You know, just like, you know, a lot of you and your family, it's like you come from a lot of session background where it's just like, you're just supposed to play guitar and do this stuff. I maybe had a little more of that than, wow, I'm an artist who can explore my own voice in that. I've been, you know, over the last 5 years, I think really trying to develop my own voice on the instrument. But beyond that, just my voice as a musician, the way that I play, the way that I approach music in general, and having guys like Jack and Theo and the rest of the band around me all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of, we're all giving each other feedback and encouraging each other in certain things where it's like, yeah, you know, Theo is an amazing songwriter. And I think he recognizes that because so many of us are encouraging him in his writing, you know?
Yeah.
And like people recognize certain things from me. Jack obviously has a lot of people really interested in what he's doing because he's a creative visionary. He's got such an insane thing. And I think when you hear enough people encourage you in certain things, like, oh, that must be what my strength is.
Yeah.
You know, and just learning to lean into it.
It's so funny to hear you talk about how you are all influencing one another from within that crew, because it's also influencing so many people outside of the Vulfpeck crew who are like, oh, I want to do something like that too, or I'm inspired by that also. But it's true that when I talked to Joe Dart, when I talked to Theo, it was clear that both of them were changed by the experience of being in Vulfpeck and working with Jack, and then kind of encouraged to go find what they do and develop it further.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, there's a real innovation in letting rhythm take the lead. I mean, I think that seems to be Jack's encouragement that you're talking about. It's like, that's the asset. That's the thing. Rhythm is the thing.
Yep. And it's a fun riddle to try to solve within my own band.
Yeah.
And as a band leader doing it live to an audience that might be like girlfriends of music school students, like, how do I make it obvious to the girlfriends, or like the uncle that just came along, or like the group of friends that has one friend who's there's one guy who's a huge Vulfpeck freak, and he brought 5 of his friends with, like, to try to convince them
that this is awesome.
To convince them. How do I make it clear to those people that that's the thing that they should be paying attention to, but not showboating it, not making it something forced? How do I make it feel natural, but also just be the lead thing?
Yeah.
It's a fun riddle. Like, a lot of people would think, oh yeah, we're going to a guitar show. You're going to expect to see some shreddy, Vai, Satriani, Malmsteen.
Right, and you carefully choose a couple of moments to take a solo.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of the time, that's not really happening. There are a couple of moments in the show where, like, you hit the distortion pedal and you actually play some lead guitar.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you get through the night without having to do that. And again, that's another kind of innovation, is to, like, put on a guitar-based show and not really take very many solos.
It's fun. It's weird, but it's also really fun, and it's kind of counterintuitive, but also it's part of the fun challenge. And then I think it works for me because and that maybe also has informed the way that I decide to do things as a show. Like you're talking about, rather than just getting up and playing, I naturally have the entertainer side of me that can help facilitate other parts of it so I can deal with the biggest riddle to solve of all, which is how to keep people engaged in an entire night of music, instrumental music, and especially where it's something where it's like it's not always a super clear, that's the thing I should be listening to.
Yeah.
It's like when Koz gets up on stage and plays the melody, yeah, exactly, that's the thing I should be looking at.
Yes.
Or when he's playing a solo, that's the thing I'm supposed to be looking at.
Yes.
It's very obvious. So the big riddle being, how do I keep people captivated? How do I keep them interested and leaving thinking, wow, I'd like more of that?
Yes. Before Koz came out last night, you went out on stage, the first song that you played, by the time it was over, it was like there had been some Borscht Belt kind of shticky stuff. There had been there'd been so much stuff that happened, and it was still just the first song, So I think hearing you say that you want to make sure everybody in the room feels that the show is for them is made very clear early on. That you want to entertain.
Yeah.
And entertainment is not necessarily a dirty word, despite the fact that there are a lot of, especially when you're in the thick of sort of studying music or whatever, geeking out, where you're not sure, is it okay to entertain,
Yeah. And I feel like what we have to lean back on, hopefully, is the fact that we can prove ourselves musically that we're not just relying on shtick or relying on the entertainment thing or like, wow, this band looks great.
Yeah.
We're not relying on all, it's like the entertainment stuff is there. And we try to get some of that stuff too. Like we have coordinator outfits because I feel like it helps make it feel like a show, for what I'm doing. There's certain things I want for it to feel like it's not like we're just going up there and completely dicking around because we clearly don't take ourselves that seriously, but we take our musicianship seriously. So at the beginning of the show, I try to set the tone and make it feel like, look, even the thing that I say at the beginning is like,
leave your ego aside.
Leave your ego at the door. Yeah. And I think what I have noticed is the shows that I don't say that, I see a little more of the cross-arm music school guy. Or
that's like interesting. So that is actually based on a reality. You say we're going to put that musician bro thing aside.
Well,
tonight.
And it's not even necessarily that. It's also just like bros out there like, hey, quit bumping into me. It's like, dude, this place is at capacity.
Yeah.
Maybe even beyond capacity. Yeah. It's just going to be, there's people that are going to hit into you.
Yeah.
That's okay. Everybody's trying to have a good time.
Yeah.
That guy's trying to pay his cell phone bill too.
Yeah.
And he might not have been able to. And this is his way of thinking, I'm going to get away from that tonight. Yeah. And that's my hope every night is that people just feel a little more joy than when they came. And I think that also is just like what separates from me needing to be shredder guy is that for me, the big picture and the vision of what I have in my music is that I want people to leave feeling great, and I want them to leave with the feeling of, wow, that was fun. I love what, feeling good about life, feeling good about what they did, feeling good about like, I can do something that I didn't think was possible or whatever, and try to be encouraged. I'm not necessarily trying to be the Tony Robbins of funk, but I'm just trying to not make it seem like, wow, that guy's just trying to prove to, like, I don't care if somebody leaves the show saying, wow, that guy is amazing at guitar. That's not the goal.
Right.
So it immediately allows me, it frees up my mental space for so much other.
But I hear you saying that was a journey, that you did go through the sort of the forest of agony of trying to be a shredder or thinking that you were supposed to be Pat Metheny or whatever.
Yeah. And imagine that. The shows where I wasn't talking or entertaining the crowd and the ones where I was just head down, playing my guitar, trying to play fast licks, trying to be someone else and not myself. Those are the shows where there was 6 people in the audience.
Of course.
And those were the shows. Granted, we weren't as good at musicians back then. I mean, this exact band, like we have played dozens of gigs together where there's less, that's single digits people in the room. That's how we cut our teeth doing some of that. And it has been a journey together, which is also kind of why it's so fun for us to travel the world. It's like, none of us have ever been to Stockholm. We didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody who even knew my name in Stockholm.
Yeah.
Why is there 600 people here?
Yeah. I mean, I heard you say today on the, what was the webcast that you did today? With
Paste Magazine.
Paste Magazine webcast. And you said, I believe in the power of the internet.
I do.
And you should. I mean, those rooms are full because of the internet.
Yeah.
Clearly.
100%. I have a lot of people that are just guitar fans.
Yeah.
So they like the way that I play.
Yeah.
Or people that are funk fans.
Yeah.
So they like what I do.
Yeah.
Or people that are big Vulfpeck fans
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Just music lovers in general.
Yeah.
I think about the fan like my dad when he was 22 years old, who's just trying to soak up cool, interesting, good music.
Yeah.
There's those guys out there. Great. Yeah, the power of the internet is 100% made evident by what Jack has built over the last several years. And it's like, we're playing freaking Madison Square Garden this fall. That's the power of the internet. Like, this is an internet band. You know, I don't even know that Jack intended to do live shows at all in the first place. Now it's all of a sudden like sold out Red Rocks 2 years in a row. Now we're playing the Garden. This is insane.
It's outrageous.
I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. The text thread is just complete gratitude and disbelief and like the I love you bros constantly, because I think we all recognize how special and how unique the whole situation is.
So what were you doing when Jack ran into you? Who were you? My understanding is that Jack and Joe were in Minneapolis for some other, not even a Vulfpeck
and
thing.
And Theo. And some other cats. They were in Minneapolis for a Darren Criss gig.
And they came down to the bunker.
Yep. They came down to bunkers.
And you were doing the Dr. Mambo's combo thing?
Yeah.
So you had been in that band for a while.
Well, Billy Franzi, one of the founding members, the main guitar player, had shoulder surgery from some sort of bowling incident or something. Of course,
Minnesota.
Right? Yeah. That's some Minnesota. So for 6 months, he was like, "Man, I need you to cover the entire thing." Because I was hanging out there, playing, sitting in.
Did you go to school in music school in Minneapolis?
Yeah. First, I went to the University of Minnesota for science. Was not necessarily passionate about it. So I was like, all right, do my thing there. And then I'm going to go to music school.
Yeah.
And went to music college at McNally Smith College of Music in St. Paul.
Yes.
Which is no longer around. It sounds weird to say it, but my music college went out of business. Strange. We don't have to go into it. But music school in general, I don't know, man. Music school was great for me. It's great for a lot of people. It's not great for everybody. And if you can get a scholarship and work that thing out, awesome. I did not get $1 of scholarship for my education. Loans are nice. It's nice to have them paid off by now, though.
Yeah.
It was a great place for me where I was at. I learned a lot from it. I needed that kind of motivation to hit the shed as hard as I did. I would not have hit the woodshed as hard if it were just me studying under a private instructor, not having the accountability of my peers around me, or even like the healthy competition of the peers around me. And the community that was there was great.
So, but it's interesting. None of that is a specific thing that you got out of the curriculum. It's more like the environment.
Sure,
the environment is what did it for you.
Yeah, and some people need that environment. Yeah. I being one of those.
Yeah,
sure. I could have learned how to play guitar really great.
Yeah,
not in that environment, but my personality type definitely needed that to get to the next level.
By the time you came out of that, you were a Minneapolis guitar player.
At that point, I kind of didn't have any choice but to be a Minneapolis cat. You know, I mean, obviously, I've had the temptation and have even had apartments in other cities, but Minneapolis has always been home.
And and I guess we should say, like, the Dr. Mambo's combo gig has been an institution in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
a lot of Prince's
32 years, maybe something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Describe what that scene was like.
It was this, it still is a very vibrant funk, soul, hang. I wouldn't call it a jam. Some people would call it a jam. There's a huge song list, and it's high execution and high energy. It's great. It's kind of gone through different phases. Like when Michael Bland and Sonny Thompson were younger, there was a lot more like aggressive thing to it. It has maybe chilled out a little bit over the last few years, which is totally fine, totally cool. But it was just one of those places where you could just see highly well-executed, well-mixed funk music, soul music. And when I was like, hey, I want to be one of the subs, Michael was like, okay, learn the entire Earth, Wind & Fire catalog, learn the entire Ohio Players catalog, learn the entire Prince catalog. Make sure you learn all of our arrangements of those as well. And why don't you throw in this 200-song list as well?
So it's like 500 songs.
Something like that. And I hit the shed on it all.
And did you have a relationship with Michael Bland before that?
We had played some gigs together around town. We had gotten hired for some of the same sessions, some of the same gigs, and we really hit it off.
And he dug you.
Yes. And I knew that he dug me because he was hammering me about the way that I was playing.
He was one of the guys who was hammering you about what
yes. And that's kind of the calling card with Michael is if he's just like, yeah, man, cool, great job, you sound great.
He's not into it.
you're out. You're not getting the call. But if
Yeah.
he's like, yo, can't you hear Bill Brown's playing a B flat down in that octave in the organ? And then also his whirly's doing this. And at the chorus, he's moving up an octave. Don't play more than 3 notes right there.
That's
Like,
Michael Bland saying that. Too.
Yes, this is the drummer who has perfect pitch, has like this photographic memory, and he also has like perfect time where it's like, Michael, what's 102? Oh, right here. Or whatever. And he can just hit
It's
it.
so interesting. I've never heard about that. Perfect time. Sure.
It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but he's just got
Right.
that thing where it's like, oh yeah, this is the tempo
Yeah.
to September.
Yeah.
Within one click.
Yeah.
Or like, this is the tempo to I Want You Back. Record tempo.
Yes.
Or this is the tempo that they started I Want You Back at.
Right.
This is the tempo that they ended. Which one would you like?
Yes.
He's not going to be that condescending or whatever because that.
But
yeah. he gets that sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
and he understands how to place time right in the center of the grid.
Yeah.
He understands how to push it a little bit. Like when
Yeah.
I've seen him play with Soul Asylum, he's pushing it.
Yeah.
He's driving it forward.
Yeah.
I've seen him play in certain settings where he's pulling it back.
Yep.
And he's one who taught me just in the studio. Like I was cutting some acoustic guitars for him, this record that he was producing, and he's not at the computer. He can't see where I'm lining up on the grid. He's just listening in the playback. He's like, man, I feel like every time you hit 2 and 4, you're like 40 milliseconds behind my snare drum. Can you just try to lock it right on? I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, I don't know. You're just giving me crap again. He's just like, all right, you're just on me because you want to be on me. But
Like, this
he's
is
not
important.
wrong.
Right. And
I
he's
was just
right.
like, I don't know, man. Finally, I pushed back a little bit. He's like, all right, zoom in. I walk in the control room. It's like, oh, okay. But then it's just like, now just lock it. Okay. Can I control 40 milliseconds
Yeah.
on my backbeats?
Yes.
Turns out I can if I just focus that much harder.
Right.
I just have to think an extra subdivision deeper when I'm playing dung 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 dun dun. In my head, I have to be, I have to have the 32nd note grid or the 64th note grid going in my head, and then I can visually see them. And like now, I visualize every 16th note that I'm playing. Yeah, I'm visualizing it, and it allows me to float in front or behind it or right on it. And that's what I learned from Michael. That helped me really get my time right in place.
Yes.
Which is also very funny because other people have mentioned that. Like when we played with Lewis Cole, he was like, dude, I can just see the grid when you're playing that thing that you were doing. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. So can I. That's what I'm going for at least. And then when we played with Chris Thiele, he's like, man, I can just see your 16th notes when you're playing. And just to hear those guys, their awareness of it's like, oh, they're also thinking the same thing, I think. A lot of those guys that are really time guys, like Chris Thiele's time thing is insane.
Yes.
His rhythm thing is insane. So it's like, of course he sees that. And Lewis Cole, of course he sees the grid because he's come from the grid generation and he can play the grid. He can command the grid. So he sees it and feels all that. So it's interesting to hear guys like that say it because I also will recognize it also because that's the way, like I'm looking at your shirt right now and seeing a 16th note grid.
Yeah.
Your striped shirt.
Striped shirt.
Yeah.
Is that why you wear striped shirts?
Yeah, it keeps me on the grid. Yeah.
Keeps you on your grid. You played Lewis Cole before you came out on stage last night. You called him out on stage at one point, and you brought him up now.
I don't know why. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
but what I think, and also the Chris Thiele thing, and you and Chris performed together on his radio show recently, and there's a video of that was circulating after the fact because Jack Stratton is like a social media genius who 24 hours after you guys did that show, there were like videos that were edited perfectly of it. But both of those experiences speak to this idea that the internet is almost like a place. Like you guys are all from the internet in a funny way,
100%.
And so then to see you and Chris Thiele playing together, it's like, oh, those are my friends from the internet. They got together on the internet.
Yes, exactly. And that's what's fun. Like that's the positive, amazing side.
Right.
I love the internet.
Right.
I get that there's a lot of dark and twisted and horrible things out there. And that's just the way that's going to be that way with or without the internet.
Yes.
Right. There are bad people out there. There's also just like not so bad people who do bad things.
Yes.
And that sucks. But the internet is so incredible with the way it can build communities, the way that it can build relationships, the way that it can build a musical career.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Vulfpeck's an internet band. We've all been able to make a career out of our music because of that. And Lewis Cole is an internet band. I remember seeing Knower for the first time years ago, a week after they put out this Morris Hayes, the keyboard player from NPG, was showing me this video of Knower, Get Lucky. They did this, Lewis did this, and Knower, they did this Get Lucky video where it's like analog and digital.
Yeah.
And he did these two different, like completely different brained things of a cover of the song Get Lucky, the Daft Punk tune.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, this guy is the internet.
Yeah. This guy is the internet, yes.
Yeah. Sure enough, over the last 6 years or whatever, since that first video, or what, I don't know if that was his first video, but that's the first interaction I had with him.
Yeah.
He's amazing, and he crushes it, and he has all these different things to.
Yeah.
He has Knower, he has that project, he has some of his big band stuff.
Incredible.
And his solo thing, he sounds like freaking Beach Boys.
Yeah.
He sounds like the modern day Beach Boys.
Yeah.
It's insane. I listened to Pet Sounds, and then I listened to Lewis's record on this flight. I listened to those back to back, and it sounded like modern day Beach Boys. It was insane.
No, he's outrageous. But, you know, there's another aspect of it. You know, these are also very dark times in the world, right?
Totally.
And I started asking myself a couple of years ago, what is our job as content creators, as creative people, as artists or entertainers or whatever? What are we supposed to be doing? What is the message? What is the energy that we want to be putting out there?
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of people that I respect enormously who have definitely devoted their time to raising their hand and calling out all of the bullshit that's going on in the world. And then there's a whole other kind of cadre of people who have decided, you know what, we're going to double down on positivity. We're going to double down on enthusiasm. We're going to double down on happiness and joy. And I feel like one of the things that's coming off of you is just this unapologetic enthusiasm for what's happening. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's okay to feel good right now.
Yeah.
Life is weird, but we're going to feel good anyway.
Yeah, that has been my MO since I was 16 years old, for the most part. Obviously, just like everybody.
Yeah.
We get into some whatever in our heads.
Sure.
And when there's bad things that happen and that sort of thing. But I think in general, if I can keep an optimistic, positive outlook on things, I feel much better. And I notice potently the mood and vibe of everybody around having the same thing. And I have been blessed or cursed with the enthusiasm gene. I've been given that thing.
Yes.
And I have a lot of enthusiasm for things that I'm really into. Sometimes I also have enthusiasm for things that I'm not into.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, like, I might have a strong opinion if I don't like something.
I see. Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's a positive way of spinning that comment. But yeah, I know it's some dark times in certain aspects, but it is also some really good times in a lot of ways as well. And I feel an overwhelming obligation to shine light to those things, because we're going to see the dark stuff no matter what. So hopefully at some point when people interact with me or my music or my show or my videos or my internet world, that they'll see that rather than just like some other problem that's going on. Like, that's the problem of today and tomorrow. And it's probably going to be the problem for the next month. But, you know, there's those stories constantly. Yeah. And hopefully I can be the opposite side of that.
Right. And it turns out that if you are enthusiastic enough about anything, people get enthusiastic about it.
Sure.
And I don't mean to say what I'm about to say as a judgment, but I think the most brilliant case in point is Dave Koz.
Sure.
Dave Koz is a great saxophone player. He plays great, and he's a great fit for you. You guys make a lot of sense together on stage. It's awesome. But like I said, you have kids screaming for Dave Koz because they know how psyched you are about it, and then they got psyched about it, and then they're like, oh man, Dave Koz is a great saxophone player.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to say, just as somebody who has been aware of Dave Koz for a long time, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever said, I feel like I've been sleeping on Dave Koz because he's such a commercial success, but like, I never bought a Dave Koz record. I mean, I was always like, no, I listen to these other saxophone players. I don't, that's not who I listen to, you know? And for you to bring Dave Koz into this world of yours, I'm sure he's giving a certain amount of credibility and maybe giving you a different demographic that you wouldn't have access to.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about this pivot towards smooth jazz. I think it's super interesting. Whether or not it's real, I can't tell. I think
that's part of the deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have certainly done a service to Dave to bring him to a younger audience, and they're psyched because you have explained to them that they should be super psyched about this.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a fun thing too. I think maybe part of the reason why that all came to be and why I was so stoked on him is because of some experiences in the past that I've had where there is something really cool and guys are just kind of loosely hating on it. So I will explain the Koz one, and then I'll go back and tell you about the history of where that maybe stems for me. I was looking up videos of like sax and drums.
Why?
Because I was trying to get inspired for some rhythm guitar stuff for just guitar and drum breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching some Maceo clips. I was watching some Prince clips, different things, different horn players, the way that they approach just drums and sax. Because I remember as a kid seeing videos like that. And Pitar, my drummer, and I, we connect really well on stage, and we just we're just very close friends also. Yeah. So a lot of stuff, there's a lot of energy that comes from the way that we interact when it's just the two of us broken down. Anyways, we were watching this sax and drum thing, and then I just went down this rabbit hole, and I found a video of Dave Koz and his drummer doing.
And were you hip to Dave Koz before?
I mean,
that?
I knew who he was.
Yeah.
You know, I went through 2 years of Invisalign. My orthodontist was playing him every time I went into the office.
No, I heard you say that. How does he feel about it?
Dave?
Yeah,
he's very self-aware. Dave is awesome because he's he knows he's great. He also is very self-aware of the scene, though. Yeah. Like, he's like, man, could you quit saying smooth jazz? It's such a dirty word. I'm like, dude, no, it's not a dirty word.
Well, you're the first, I know we're on a tangent here.
That's fine.
But you're the first person. My feeling about smooth jazz today is that it got stuck in this kind of sonic palette.
That's whack.
And it never outgrew it.
Yeah.
Why is that the sound? That was super modern in 1989. Why are we still playing by those rules? And then you did this incredible pivot where you were like, well, what if I do want to be smooth jazz? And what if I want my music that you're listening to right now to make it onto the smooth jazz charts? Yeah. And I realized, like, right, you could just be disruptive and that'll work too. And you get to potentially reorient what we expect out of that format. Now, I also understand that it's a gimmick, but but it might actually pay off.
Totally. And there is two sides to that. Yes, 100% on what you're saying about that. What I discovered is I've seen some smooth jazz acts live that their records sound horrendous.
Yeah.
But when you see them live, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's this tenacious, amazingly raw and aggressive and just deep groove sound that's just incredible.
Yeah.
It just sounds like, instrumental funk or R&B tracks. It's like, this sounds like instrumental Prince tracks.
Yes.
Completely. It sounds insane live.
Completely.
But why does your record sound, why is it literally unlistenable for me? I don't know. There's I'm not going to name the artist who it was, but there was such a difference between when I saw them live. It's like, check them out on Spotify. Wow, I can't find a single track that I find listenable.
Yeah.
So not only is it on the side of me being the millennial ambassador to smooth jazz,
which is your new,
this is my publicist coined title.
Yes.
But like showing my peers, look, we were taught that this is a dirty word, that this is a bad word, but actually there's some dope musicians out there in the smooth scene. Insane musicians, insane musicality. And it's also, I'm just trying to say something to this. They like to be called contemporary jazz community now. That's what I've been told. And that's what they keep saying more or less on Watercolors. I did some reconnaissance, okay? Sirius XM Watercolors. They say contemporary jazz. I don't know that I've ever heard them say smooth jazz. But again, I think it's just part of that, whatever. I am also trying to disrupt their mindset. It was like, guys, your live show rocks. Why do your records sound like this? You're doing it this way live. That's what you want to do, right? Yeah. Why does your record sound like that? But if you listen back to old Benson records like Breezin', that record is dope.
Yes.
That record, the drum sounds are just to die for. The guitar tone is insane. All the sounds, the mix, the way that it feels, the way that it sounds, like, I don't know, just feels like for a lack of better terms, a smoother version of like a Meters record. Yes. But it's like, I don't know. there's a lot of
Well, yeah, for sure. So now we get to Dave Koz,
Yeah.
who you discover while watching a video.
Yes.
He obviously entered into the world that he entered into knowingly.
Yep.
And I realized that he did last night when I heard him play with you because he can really play.
Dude can shred.
He can really play.
Phrase.
And you said to him last night at one point, you go, make it smooth. And he turns on this thing that he totally knows how to do.
The Koz compressor just hits.
And that's awesome that he does that. That's an awesome thing that he does. But he's much more of a musician than that.
Totally.
And I would never have known that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the records.
I don't think he would scoff at that comment, and he might even be like, yeah, my records have sounded this way and blah, blah, blah. And I think he's also in a point where he knows he's top of the scene, but he also, he gets it, and he's very transparent with us. Like, yeah, it's fun for me to sit in with Vulfpeck because there's these kids yelling my name. What is up with this? And then it draws this new thing out of him. And then I think it inspires him where he's like, wow, what if I did something with this sort of sound? And that's just as much the goal right there is to let musicians like Dave free.
And it almost though feels like it wasn't the goal. Like that's like you're checking it out now and you're like, oh dude, we actually liberated Dave Koz.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Like we were just it was just a thing, and then it worked and then it turned out that he dug it and you dug him and that there's a thing happening here. And it also elevated your show to an extent last night. It
totally. Back to why I was so adamant about Koz is because I kind of wanted to prove my friend wrong who was around in the room watching the video with us at the time. And sometimes I will go to great lengths to prove somebody wrong or to help prove somebody right.
Right.
I will go to insane lengths.
Yeah.
Two of those motivations for this entire thing are, one, my booking agent telling me there's no way you're ever going to get on this Dave Koz cruise this coming year. The thing's already sold out. And their headliners are already announced.
Who are the headliners?
Tower of Power, Candy Dulfer, Dave Koz. My booking agent telling me that it was impossible to get booked on the gig, which through all this was able to help prove them wrong, and I got booked on the Koz.
And you totally said that on a video. You went on a video and you were like, my agent says I can't.
Yeah. And it's fine. It's great.
Yeah.
It's good to challenge your agents every once in a while. And the other was my friend who was watching this video with us was like, I don't know, man. He's a smooth jazz sax player. He's whack, He's not like X, Y, or Z sax player who's like a real jazz musician. It's like, man, I kind of get why you say that. Sure, whatever. Like, is Nile Rodgers not a real guitar player compared to like a Frizzell or a Schofield? It's like, dude, they're totally different things. Like, Nile Rodgers is not trying to be Pat Martino.
Yeah.
So part of it was also like, look, I'm going to show you that Koz is dope by having him play with us.
But by using that example of Nile Rodgers, there's a part of me that thinks that you are sensitive to that kind of criticism because you are also not a typical guitar player.
Sure.
In the mold that a lot of sort of musos would be looking at and going, that's a fucking shredder guitar player.
Yes.
So you're able to look at a musician and say, look, there's an enormous talent and value to what this person is doing.
Yes. And part of that also is when I was in music school, I had some very influential teachers say to me which guitar players are good to listen to and learn from and which ones aren't. And one of those not be like one of the whack guitar players, according to a couple of these teachers, was George Benson.
Right.
And I just kind of went through college thinking, oh yeah, Benson, whatever. It's not any good. And I didn't do my homework. I didn't listen through Benson records because my teachers told me not to.
Yeah.
And then I was hanging out with Michael Bland at his house in his basement. He was talking about this. Oh yeah, do that thing from that. Like, give me like a George Benson thing on this. Where I was like, a Benson thing? I kind of I kind of vibed his comment on something. He's like, hold up. I was like, I don't know. I thought Benson was this and this. And then he's like, giving me this therapy session on like, dude, session's over. Nope, we're done.
We're listening.
Throw on Breezin', like put it in the speakers, crank it up. We listened all the way through to Breezin'. Yeah. Then it's like 1974 version of Affirmation live on some TV show or something. It's like, oh my gosh, Benson's the king. Yeah. And from there it was like, wow, somebody like people can be so blind to some stuff or just have these really strong opinions and then share them with these malleable youth that it's like, dude, these guys messed up. I mean, whatever. I obviously the experience is
That's so interesting, though, also in terms of comparing and contrasting the relationship of studying in a school
Sure.
as opposed to in Michael Bland's basement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And where does the information really get passed on?
Yeah.
It gets passed on in like a cat's basement where he's like,
Totally.
"Dude, stop everything. You need to listen to this."
But it's also like, in some ways, my other teachers, I don't know what they were doing. But there's also other people. Like, I have a friend, one of my close friends who lives in Paris.
Yeah.
We were there this summer. I wanted to go. One of my main bucket list things I wanted to do was I wanted to go see Monet's gardens.
Uh-huh.
They have been a huge inspiration for me as an artist in a lot of different ways. His paintings of the gardens, his making of the gardens, being the gardener, making paintings of the gardens in different seasons and different seasons of his life, all these things, whatever. On the artist side, huge inspiration. Wanted to go see that in Giverny. And I also had 10 days in Paris. We were on vacation. My parents had my kids for, up at Nana camp. So had some time away. And my friend who lives in Paris was like, we were saying we were going to go to the Louvre and see Mona Lisa and all these other, great things that I want to see. I had a really compelling spiritual experience there with Woody and some other guys when we were there with Vulfpeck my first time in Paris. And I just wanted to go back. My friend's like, museum's lame, dude. Why do you want to go there? Like there's so much better stuff to do in Paris. I'm like, dude, hold up. You're hating on Benson right now.
Yeah,
right. It was like,
yeah.
There are plenty of things that we sometimes do that with. And then I saw my friend do it about Koz, and I was just like, all right, that's it. I'm getting a hold of Koz. I got to find some way of getting his attention. I got to find some way to convince all of my peers and all of my musician community that Koz is dope. I just need to reveal it to them because he is. I know Koz is dope. I just need to reveal that to them. And then what would be great is if his community could recognize, yeah, there's some young cats that can play too. And it's not all just computer music. And like, we're out there playing some stuff. And I'm trying to sound like Benson's records from the 70s, which is the source to a lot of your favorite musicians' inspiration, So,
well, I'm sure that community is super psyched. I mean, I think they love it when another younger generation appreciates what they did.
Yeah,
I don't. I think you will see on that cruise that adoration and delight. I can't imagine that you'll find anything other than that.
They might think I'm a nutcase after seeing my show. I'm trying to decide how much of my personality to let out, but I'm just gonna be me. Dave wants me to 100% be me.
This is your first year as a touring solo artist, right?
Yeah.
You don't seem particularly uncomfortable with it, but it's also pretty new for you. Like
very new
to be playing a bit like this big room as you're, just as you, and you're like this, you're a thing, know? Were you ready for it? Were you looking for it? I mean, before the Vulfpeck thing, like, is this something that you were aiming for?
Like my artist thing?
Yeah.
No, I was renting an apartment in Nashville, flying. I was commuting back and forth, working a lot in Nashville, doing sessions, playing as a sideman for a bunch of other artists, played on a bunch of records, toured as a sideman, doing the daily rate thing for a long time. And I was just like, eventually started to get the itch, like, I like still doing my own music and writing a little bit and recording my own music. And I had that creative bug, but it was really, people like Jack or Ben Rector who encouraged and who I could watch them lead and run it. Like being an entertainer for me in general comes pretty natural. Being a leader for me comes pretty natural, quite natural actually in both of those things. And an organizer comes pretty natural, unless it's like, probably not by our text thread. My communication with you has been so off just because it's like there's so many things going on. But a lot of those things are very right in my wheelhouse. And that doesn't grant me immediate like, oh, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I have played hundreds of gigs next to some of the greatest frontmen or entertainers out there. And some of the greatest frontmen entertainers that were internet acts. People like Ben Rector starting as kind of, I don't know, a lot of people maybe knew him as a YouTube guy.
Yeah.
I came in when his thing was developed, and it's just like, wow, that guy knows how to build a show. That guy knows how to command a crowd, an intimate crowd and a large 5,000 venue crowd. Same with Jack. It's like he understands a lot of different things. Ben has given us a great nugget of wisdom where it's like sleight of hand magic will work for a small audience, but but sleight of hand magic is not going to work when the venue size steps up. So you have to learn a different trick. And then when that venue size steps up, you're going to have to learn a new trick or come up with a different trick. And that's something that I've really taken to heart and seen in the way that Jack has developed the show and his musicianship and leadership and entertainer side. And even with Vulfpeck, Theo is an insane frontman entertainer. So I get to see all these different ones. Joey Dosick is also.
Incredible also.
So when it was time for me to step out and start doing my own stuff, I pay attention. I am paying attention to what the drummer is doing at all times because it affects how I play what I'm doing. Like, I know my parts. I know my role in a thing. But if there's stuff that's kind of shifting, I'll shift along with it. Or if like there's a moment that's happening. So I always like to pay attention to what's happening and then pay attention to the energy that Ben is trying to lead as a frontman in a pop scenario. The thing that Theo is setting up from the drum set singing, or that Jack is trying to set up through whatever he's doing. So learning from how those guys are sending those cues, because I have to receive those. Yeah. It helps inform me on which of those cues work better to communicate with the band and also communicating with an audience. Like, things are going to ramp up here. Pay attention. Yes. Or like, hey, I'm trying to take control back of this. You're getting a little out of hand. We're getting into an intimate moment. And there's very subtle, subliminal ways to do that. And I've just learned how to do that from watching other people and also just some of my own instincts.
It strikes me that the same process that you describe of having to find what your voice is as a guitar player is true as a band leader. Like,
sure. Yeah.
You've seen all these great band leaders and all these show entertainers, and they all do their thing. And so it would be tempting to say, well, I want to be like Ben or I want to be like Jack.
Totally.
But the lesson is really, no, you have to find this thing that you do that is authentically you and dial that up, turn that thing on.
Yes. And no matter how much you try to script that, or theoretically, knowing from reading the book of where the hippocampus is in the brain, you're only going to be able to perform surgery on it after you get some effective surgery once you get some reps in. Once you've opened up the hood. For lack of better terms. And that's part of the thing is like, yes, this is my first year doing this, and I'm fortunate. I feel like I'm fortunate because I've learned from those things. I watch footage, just like the biggest and best athletes in the world watch footage from their previous games.
So you watch.
I will watch things back. It's like, that's not working, or I went way too long there. And even last night, it's like, man, that's the longest show we've ever played. I really wish we wouldn't have gone as long as we did, but there was some extenuating circumstances because of the Koz thing and like all this other extra stuff. So different. But I watch footage to learn from it, to know where I need to think differently or time things differently. Yeah. I've learned from watching other people, and maybe we've done 60 shows in the last year. So I've got a lot of reps under my belt. And with all that self-analysis after every show, I'm just getting better and better. So you didn't see the first 2 shows that I did.
Right.
Those were a little more awkward. But now I just have it much more dialed in.
Well, and it's a craft. I mean, that's what you're saying. It's
totally.
Like putting a show together is a craft.
Yeah.
You treat it that way. Okay, I want to wind back because I got to hear this. I have to have you telling me this story about. So you've been hanging at Dr. Mambo's Combo.
Yes.
On Monday nights. Is that where it is?
Sundays and Mondays.
Sundays and Mondays.
We had a long diversion there. Yeah,
I know, but I got to get there.
Yeah,
I got to know the story.
Okay.
So we're gonna wind back now to you in Minneapolis.
Yep.
How many years ago?
6 years ago.
2013, 2014.
Sounds about right.
You're in Minnie.
Yeah.
Are you going to Nashville yet or not?
I had just been starting to. I didn't have an apartment in Nashville yet.
So you're doing some sessions.
Yeah, doing some sideman tours, like 2 weeks. Fly down to Nashville for bus call, fly home after sort of thing.
So you were starting to think about maybe spending more time in Nashville. You were in Minneapolis on the scene there. You were hanging out. You were friends with Bland because you guys have been on sessions. Hanging out at Mambo's Combo, Billy Franzi asked you to sub for him for 6 months.
Yeah.
And here you are in the thick of the Minneapolis scene. You've learned all of Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of Michael Jackson. You've learned all of the Mambo's arrangements.
Yeah.
You've you have prepared yourself to be the new millennial Minneapolis guitar player.
Yes. And I've prepared myself for the beating that Michael Bland and Sonny Thompson will give me in Groove every night. In the best way possible.
And into this fray walks Jack Stratton, Theo Katzman, Joe Dart and some of their friends.
Yep, Darren, Chris, some other cats. We had some mutual friends that said, like, you got to go. This is the hang.
Yeah.
Go check this band out.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And I think the night before Prince was there or something.
Yeah.
So there was some buzz around it. Like Prince was hanging out, saw the band. I mean, he would come like maybe once a month or something.
Well, I was thinking, I'm usually much better at staying on track here, but I was thinking about when you said how that scene has mellowed as Sonny and Michael have gotten older.
That was even before Prince died, though, and in any of that.
That it was mellowing.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, like, there was always around Dr. Mambo's combo, there was always the possibility that Prince might show up.
Yeah.
And I wonder,
yeah, totally.
And I wonder if there's even
funny
just
tension.
This secondary effect of that.
I think
that those guys are always just like ready for that to happen.
Well, here we are. Yeah, we're in the therapy session like you were talking about. I think there was that. There's some of that rooted in there. And when, his people called and said he's showing up, prepare his table in the back corner.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. And it was pretty obvious in the audience too. It's like, whoa, the band's pretty tight tonight. And then when he walked in, it was like, boom, we're on. And like there's just this different amount of pressure and tension. But also for me, like this fun.
So you played
for
behind,
me,
you
it
played with
energized me.
You played with him.
I didn't play with Prince, but he would come up and sit in, and there was only one amp.
So you would have to leave the stage in order for him to play. There was only one amp.
Yeah.
If he's
no,
playing,
how am I going to argue with that?
No, but that's super interesting. Man.
Or go bunk beds and I didn't both into the same amp.
I mean, those guys had been in his band. They weren't, whatever. But like, even when they weren't his musicians, it was like it was so present for them that he could at any time show up.
Yeah,
it's a strange relationship,
Yeah, there's a weird leadership and power dynamic with Prince that you can hear all kinds of stories from all of the people that have worked with him.
Yeah,
for better or worse. But yeah, there's a lot of relationship dynamics at play there, and probably a lot of Pavlov's dog involved in that too.
Totally.
But I think that sort of thing, you probably nailed some of that, but it did start to mellow out before that.
So okay,
we're in Minneapolis. I'm playing this gig.
Yes.
There is this, you're a musician. Yeah. You've been at hundreds of gigs. You can just kind of look in the crowd and tell who the musicians are.
Yeah.
The way that they're watching the band play, right? So we're up there playing, doing the set, doing the thing, and I see these dudes walk in, hanging out, that are clearly like my age.
Yeah.
Obvious to me that they're musicians because I can just see the way that they're watching things and responding to things. It's like the general public does not respond to like a Sonny T, like, pow, the way that a musician will, where it's like, doom, doom, doom,
and they're going, yes,
the general public's not like, don't, did you hear that? Did you hear that? But musicians do. Like, you can't, it's a different, so there's some of those dead giveaways, but then it's also just like, kind of eyeing the gear, seeing what's up there. It's like, oh, dope, he's got his own B3 and an actual organ. It's like, most of the general public is not
thinking about that.
Yeah, or responding that way.
This is why my wife refuses to hear music with me most of the time.
Sure,
like, the guy behind him is actually, see how he's triggering the thing? Like, I'm always just trying to figure out,
Yeah.
It's like, stop telling me I don't want, I don't care.
Oh, interesting. Look, his mod wheel is actually routed to his foot pedal.
Totally.
Yeah. Guys walk in, clearly around my age. They look like, I'm thinking to myself, these guys are young musicians.
Yeah.
My age. How do I not know these guys? These guys should be my friends. They look like they would be my friends.
Yeah.
Why are they not my friends?
So they looked the part.
It's like, I could just tell, like, these guys should be my friends.
Yeah.
And then got done with the set or whatever. Theo came up. He's, the other one in the band who's also just really enthusiastic and people person.
Yeah.
He and I are, we have this, we are the flaming extroverts of the band. And it's just who we are.
Yeah.
And he came up and was just like, bro, blah, blah, this and this and this. And he was saying, oh, yeah, like, I was like, oh, you're Theo. Like, I actually saw you 6 months ago playing in Caleb's band. Our friend Caleb Howley, we had this mutual friend. That's the person who suggested that we come see this. And it was just like, we had this mutual friend, and then we started hanging a little. Hey, here's Jack, here's Joe, blah, 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 this and that. And then it was like, and Joey Dosick was there also. So the next day, They were like, yeah, we aren't leaving until like 2 p.m. If you know any good breakfast spots? I was like, yeah, let me bring you.
Yeah.
And then we hung out all morning.
By the way, so where do you take them for breakfast in Minneapolis?
Well, it's much different now. We all have a much different diet, but
Are you all on? You're all on the Stratton train now. You're all.
I mean, if you want to credit it to if it's Stratton's train, sure. He's the one who kind of convinced a lot of us or gave the argument.
And what is it? So vegetarian?
Well, mostly plant-based, whole
Yeah.
food plant-based.
Yeah.
I am not 100%. I'm not like full-on strict about it, but it's the majority of my life is that.
Is plant-based.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean like I'm going around eating lettuce.
No, but it's kind of
carrots.
I mean, I think about that as just the Michael Pollan, just like eat food that you can recognize what it is.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the majority of my diet. Maybe 85, 90%.
And that came through the band.
Yeah, I've always been a pretty healthy eater well, no, that's a lie. I've always wanted to be a healthy eater. And I try to burn clean coal,
Yeah.
It's a tough train to keep as much energy as I have if I'm eating crap for food or like super fried heavy food that's just like I can feel my body like we want more energy, but what you're doing is whatever. So try to burn clean coal, and I just haven't felt any better than when I've ate this sort of diet. So, and I call it diet is not the right word for it. Since I've had this lifestyle of eating or whatever. And I'm not trying to push it on anybody.
Yeah.
But I'll give the guys in the van crap if they're eating Cheetos, it's disgusting to me. But, well, it's disgusting. I had friends growing up that would eat Cheetos, come over to my house. We'd be playing on my Nintendo 64. They'd be eating Cheetos and getting my 64 controllers all red and orange and disgusting. But anyways, we went out to breakfast, started hanging out when they would come into town. At the time, I was also doing a lot of work in L.A.,
Mm-hmm.
So I was going out to L.A., doing some recording, random things, some arranging things, and we just kind of became friends, started jamming a little bit, and it's like it was very natural. We just kind of became friends. It wasn't like, and it was before many people knew who Vulfpeck was. It was just we became homies and we were friends. And Joe Dart is still in my phone as Joe Dart Bass L.A. Like, that's how I remembered who he was.
But it just fit, as you say. It just sort of made sense.
Yeah, we became friends, and then it just started being more... Jack wanted to have me record on this record. He's like, come out to this, and then...
So it was the first record was you went to Michigan and you did Cory Wong and...
Yeah, and The Beautiful Game.
Yeah.
Deantown, Cory Wong, One for One. Yeah, and I on that record, I remote recorded for Conscious Club and... Marjorie.
And was that the first time you guys had really worked together?
We had done one other recording of a video, like the original arrangement of Cory Wong. This is jamming in Jack's old house in L.A.
But it was pretty fresh. I mean, those first times we saw you was kind of one of the first times you were working together.
I mean, I met Woody that day. I had never met Woody up until that point, but I had been friends with all the other guys because Woody lived somewhere else at the time. I think actually Woody was living in Texas. And then it just I think became much more natural thing. Like I started to play a couple shows with them, started to do some more recording. And then I think it just naturally fell more into place. And then.
Did you feel a bump or a change in your profile as a solo artist? Did you?
Totally.
Immediately.
Yes. It would be foolish. It would be completely foolish to say otherwise. And even from the outside looking in, it would seem obvious.
Yeah.
Just like. Yeah, I'm not going to call... Well, whatever. Now, at this point, I'm calling him out. But there's a Mark Maron interview with Joe Walsh where he's like, what was one of the biggest career things for you? It's like, well, yeah, joining the Eagles.
Yeah.
Totally. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, Walsh had a solo thing before. It's different for me because I didn't really have a lot of solo... any real solo stuff
That's
happening.
What's so interesting. And in a sense, it's kind of differentiates you from... It's a different story from Theo's story. Like, Theo's thing was his conflict with the band... and he says it in the interview that we did, was like wondering if it was going to take away from his solo career to be associated so deeply with the band, because then people don't necessarily know what he does. And I think he's managing that, and undoubtedly more people know his name because of the band and he writes them, but whatever.
But I think that will change. He's an incredible solo artist, and I think at some point he will be more well known than what the band is. I truly do believe that.
It could
He's
be
an insane.
He's an unbelievable
artist.
talent. You, on the other hand, took this opportunity.
He's an insane artist. Then you follow up with you on the other hand.
Now let's get
I know
back
that was
to
not
you.
the right timing, but
Let's
I
get
just
back
want
to
to
you.
acknowledge it. It was fun.
You're an insane artist also,
That's what I was looking for.
which is true. But as you say, that's not where your head was before the band. It was like through being a part of the Vulf crew,
Yeah.
you saw, oh, there's a way I could see taking what I do and applying some of the same sort of values or whatever stuff
Sure.
I'm learning here, and I got something I can do now. I see now what I can do with with my talent, my scene. I'm
Sure.
an artist now too.
Yeah, and I think it was just more than I put out a couple projects that, were kind of experimental, and some videos for me that were experimental in just like, oh, I wonder what it would be like if I did some of my own music, and had some response, and it was fun, it's cool, and then it's just starting to do a little bit more. It's like, oh, I think I can kind of carve out a niche for this thing in what I'm doing, and if people are interested, great. More guitar-centered, not guitar-center music.
Yeah.
That would be Sweet Child of Mine covers with a couple wrong notes.
Yeah.
Guitar-centric music that people can be into. If that's the more niche angle they want to go from, like if people are into Vulfpeck or whatever, if they want to go more niche into the guitar-centric and jam vibe,
Yeah.
they might want to go more down the path of what I'm listening to than if they want to listen to songwriter songs. And it's like, yeah, go listen to Theo or Joey,
Yeah.
because they're amazing at that. They're some of my favorite artists in the world.
I think this is like a moment right now. I think we're talking about a pretty interesting moment for you.
Yeah, it is. It feels really exciting. And it also feels like, whoa, I'm just kind of hanging on, trying to figure it out. But I also, at the same time, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to give it everything. At every show, I'm going to give it everything. And it's fun to see the audience react to that and recognize that. And on my records, just go for it. And, maybe when I'm a little more tired and not wanting to be on the road as much, I'll dive into some of that other stuff where it's like, yeah, I'm going to play bass on 4 records this year, and that'll be fun. Or like, I'm going to produce 4 records this year instead of 1 or 2. Like normally I kind of allot enough time and emotional energy to a couple records a year. Like I did my friend Phoebe's record, which I'm super excited about, but there's a lot that goes into it because, for me, producing a record, there's a really, I don't know. I think I take the role very seriously, so I don't want to just kind of let anything go out half-baked, and, I want to put my all into it. And right now it's like, yeah, I got enough time and emotional energy for a couple of those.
You have crazy energy, though. I mean, obviously that's a big part of what's happening here,
Sure.
right? You obviously have a lot of energy.
The fortunate thing is I feel like I don't have as much energy like when I got here tonight as I have the last few days, partially because we had that huge show last night. We did this big Paste Magazine live stream. We stayed afterwards, and I recorded 2 songs with Dave Koz, and I got in the subway and came over here.
And you had a Thai massage earlier?
Well, there was 30 minutes in between the time I got out of the subway to the time that I knocked on your door.
Oh, you went to the Thai place around the corner?
Yeah, I got a little 20-minute walk on the back.
I know about that place.
Yeah.
Right outside the subway.
But it put me in a like, I needed that. Like, because my friends make fun of me because I say I'm not a massage guy, but it's something that really helps my body to like release all this, the tension in my muscles and all this. I'm on my computer all the time. I'm carrying a really heavy backpack and a guitar on my back all the time. And I'm playing guitar a lot. So, and running all over stage a lot. So I try to do things like yoga and get massage to kind of loosen back up. But after a massage, I'm normally like, so I only had 20-minute massage, which only brought me down in my energy level a little bit.
20%.
Yeah.
Not 40%. I'm really blown away by the level of intensity that is required for you to do this. And
Sure.
I saw your show last night. I knew you were going to do the merch table thing. I'm sure you were hanging out afterwards because it was a big celebratory thing. I knew that you guys came in from another show.
Yeah.
And then I'm like sitting at my computer working today, and you pop up doing this pace thing, and I was just thinking, it's a lot. And you gave it up for the show. You have to give it up for the show. They didn't see you at Bowery last night. They don't know what you had to give up last night.
Yeah.
They just want to see you do it again right now.
Yeah.
You have to give it up every time.
Yep.
And it's punishing. And on the other hand, if you're excited to be doing it, then you do it,
Yes. Emotionally and creatively, when I do all these things, it just creates, it just builds up more creative energy and emotional energy for it rather than draining it. It's something that as I do it, it just builds onto the pile rather than like, man, that was so draining. Physically, a lot of it is draining just because it's like, I didn't get 8 hours of sleep last night. I like to get 8 hours of sleep every night. It's one of my luxuries that I like to afford myself.
Yes.
A good night's sleep.
Yeah.
It's one of the few things I'm like, nope, I got to get this.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I will do that. But last night, didn't get my 8 hours. We had a exhausting, long marathon show and had this thing this morning. Well, and also before that, I went and hung out at the D'Angelico Guitars place, hung out there, played some guitars, met those guys, hung out, did the Pace Magazine thing, did the session with two songs with Koz that we recorded. And then it was just like, all right, I got 20 minutes on the subway to chill, listen to some music, hang out. And it was like, oh, I got 30 minutes until I'm supposed to be at Leo's. Find me that 60-plus Thai lady who can just dig her heels into my back.
Cory, I am honored that you fit me into this schedule.
Oh, dude, no way.
This
We've been trying to do this for a long time, and we have so many mutual friends.
I know.
I am surprised that it hasn't happened sooner.
I know.
So it's been a long time in the making.
Cory Wong.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
There he was, the great Cory Wong. What an enthusiastic guy. Leo will be back soon with another great episode. Until then, he'll talk to you soon.
That was really good and super hard.
And I gotta do it again?
Just a couple of the lines. Can you
No,
just do the
no.
I'll give you another $5.
How much do you want me to deal with?
So much. But I don't want to force you if you don't
You
want
have to give me $10 if I do it.
Okay.
That means 15 too.
You're insane. You're a ridiculous, crazy negotiator.
I'll do it.
You'll do
if
it?
you do that.
Okay, you got to read the whole thing again for $10.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
It seems insane. You get $5 to read it, then you want another $10 to read just one more line or two more lines?
I really don't want to do it. That makes a point.
That does make a point. All right, I'll use what I got.
Why is it bad that I'm laughing through the beginning?
No, it's not. I like to have a couple options. Everything I do, I like to have a couple options on it, and then I can choose the best option. I always do a couple options.
Like what?
It gets easy. If I'm playing drums or something on a record, I usually do a couple of takes. Almost everything I do, even when I read the introductions to these or when I do the introductions, I'll do it a couple of times and then I have some choices to choose from. That's my technique. Everybody has their own technique, That's the way I like to work. I like to, because here's the thing. The first take, what you just did is called a take. The first take, there's always magic in it that you can't get back because you're just discovering it for the first time. You're hearing it for the first time, and you'll never get back to that innocence. But the second time, you've learned. You went through it once, and you learned something about the content. And that tends to be the time. You don't know it too well. You haven't learned it so well that it's just you're going through the motions, but you know it a little bit better.
I don't want to.
Oh, you don't have to. You did a great first take. That was a wonderful take. I'm really proud of you. One take. Turn on your machine. Thank you, Saul. You did a great job. Goodbye. Turn on your machine. One time. Press record.